can't have another one on the same question, because that would be against standing orders. So I call on Members' Order of the Day for Members' Bill number 1.
Films, Videos and Publications Classification Interim Restriction Orders Amendment Bill interrupted debate on third reading.
Sorry, can I just indicate to Amy Adams before we start, we're having a little bit of a problem with the clocks at the moment, and it may be that the clock goes up rather than down. All right, okay? All right. The Honourable Amy Adams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'll take the clock as gospel then. Look, it is a pleasure to take a call on this third reading on what is a very good bill from my very hard-working colleague, who I'm now delighted to call the member for the Hut, Chris Bishop, who put this bill into the House through the members' ballot, which is, as new members will come to know, a very important part of the way this House operates, and is often where we see some very worthwhile and not always the biggest most significant changes, but nonetheless very important changes that can be addressed and worked through. And I congratulate Chris Bishop for finding this gap in the law and working to address it. Now, the particular issue that's being discussed here, and it's probably worth reflecting on it just because it has been far more than the usual period of break in an interrupted reading, and since we've had the discussions on this bill, is of course the change to the Films, Video and Publications and Classification Act that came about as a result of a very unique situation in New Zealand, and one I think that everyone would agree is not the sort of New Zealand that any of us want to live in. And that is the situation where, as a country, we found a book being banned. And in a country that stands up for free speech and the rule of law, it is quite inimical to our way of life that we would have book banning. And that was the issue that the Board of Review found themselves in September 2013 with a book called Into the River, which was almost by operation of law having to be banned because the Review Office found themselves in the situation where, having been asked to review the decision of the Classification Office and having been asked to put in place an interim classification for the publication in question, they only had the two options, which was to either leave the book entirely unclassified, which had previously been classified as restricted to 14-year-olds and over, or to ban the book entirely. And even though the Review Office were quite clear that they didn't think banning the book was appropriate, nor did they feel comfortable making it entirely unrestricted because of the nature of its content. And so we had this, as I say, very contrary to New Zealand way of life approach of completely banning the book. And so Chris Bishop realised that there was a lacuna in the law and put forward this member's bill to provide for an enhanced series of interim orders which address that situation and mean where there is an interim order and a classification office decision or a Board of Review decision, they can put in place really the full range of orders that you would expect them to be able to do, either to leave it unclassified, to ban it entirely, or to put whatever restrictions are required in terms of access to the publication in the meantime. Now, the bill has been through Select Committee, of course. I wasn't on the Select Committee at the time, but I understand there were a number of thoughtful submissions. The committee made some useful changes, tweaking the name of the bill to better reflect the style of parliamentary drafting, and obviously just adjusting the offence provisions as well to give effect to that more complete set of interim orders under the Films, Videos and Publications Classification Act. So, Madam Chair, we find ourselves now at the third reading stage in this interrupted debate. My understanding is that the bill has been unanimously supported through the House to this point. I would very much hope that that would continue. I see no reason why not. It is an issue that needs to be resolved. As I said at the outset, not the biggest issue that this House will deal with, but nonetheless this is an issue that resulted in something that I regard as actually very serious. We don't want to be a country that bans books. That's not who we are, and it is absolutely the view of most of us in the House, I know I've expressed it myself on many occasions, that whether or not I agree with what someone says, I will always stand up for their right to say it. And I haven't read this book. I don't know particularly how offensive or challenging the material might be, but nonetheless, I'm prepared to stand up for the right of the book to be available, subject to the appropriate classifications. So where we found ourselves in a situation where the law compelled a banning of books, then it was right to act, and Chris Bishop saw that opportunity, put the bill in the ballot. Was very fortunate, I have to say, Mr Bishop, in having the bill drawn. Not every member in the House is as lucky. I've been lucky once myself. I hope to be lucky far more often now that I can be back in the ballot. And, Madam Chair, it is with those few words that I wish to commend the bill to the House.
Madam Speaker.
Ginny Anderson.
I take the call to